Butterfly, fly here with me.
Hi, welcome back to my summer house. Yeah, I'm a firm believer, as you can already tell from my videos, that I love music. I love a cup of tea, and I love different ways of listening to music. Whether that be through radio, tape player, a record player, iPod, streaming, listening to live bands, or just listening to myself, playing through songs of my own or other people's, people that are known and people that are unknown. People I agree with their ideas in life, and I feel like I've had a similar journey, but I also have learnt to connect with people that have a different journey and a different aspect or view on the world and life and how we should live that best. But is there a negative side to music, or is there traps we can find in music? I've mentioned Busted a few times, and they are a band that, when they sort of came out and were very popular, some of the songs that they were singing about, it's all classic boy looking at girls and hot chicks and all this stuff that they were going on about. I found it. Someone had loads of music. I had a lot of music. I was buying loads of CDs. I bought about £3,000 worth of CDs between probably 14 when I bought my Now album. Initially a tape, but then I started buying CDs as they came out. And by the time I was sort of 19, I had about £3,000 worth of CDs. So I loved music, and I was open to lots of different music. I mean, I had Prodigy, and I had all sorts of different types of music and different people. But yet someone like Busted seemed to really grate on me. But I think the reason straight up why it grated on me was because I'd never got a girlfriend per se, that I was going out with or anything like that. I found myself doing two things. One, I was listening really hard to the lyrics that women were bringing out, and that would share a lot of insight into how women would feel in relationships. And even if I didn't understand it then, actually now having a life and looking back and experiencing relationships with a woman, I can see the emotional journey is similar to the experiences I was being exposed to through the lyrics that girls and women were putting out. Also, I was friend zoned. What I found was, because I wasn't the guy they fancied or the guy that they were interested in, I actually found out that they liked me in a different way. And actually, sometimes girls would be more open to actually talking about the issues that I experience. I mean, when I was at school, I didn't have many of these friendships. I was pretty much hanging out with my boy mates. But there was one girl called Lisa Webb who was regularly in my art class, and she used to mock me every single class. She would dig on me. She would, I was a scrawny, not good looking kid. And she would, she wasn't, I wouldn't say the most popular, but she was, she was someone you didn't mess with, because she just looked like the type of person that probably would bash you if you really upset her. So nobody really messed with her, per se. But she was sometimes very brutally unkind to me, being mean and all this kind of stuff. And most of the time I wouldn't respond just because I didn't have a leg to stand on, because she could probably easily beat me up unashamedly. So there wasn't no way of me defending myself. So I just had to accept that was how she wanted to be with me. And she wasn't the only one giving me that kind of insult at the time. So it wasn't really much different. But it was interesting because when I left school, finished school, we all sort of had our leaving books and stuff like that. Ironically, she actually wrote a really kind message in that book saying, actually, Bunkle, Bunks, or whatever she used to call me. I can't remember now. She actually wrote a nice letter saying, actually, you're alright, Matt, Bunkle. Be yourself, something like that. Can't remember the exact words, and I can't dig it out to find the exact words, but I remember reading it thinking, oh right, she actually liked me in the end. It might have not been that she fancied me, she might have thought I was a complete idiot, but she appreciated me as a person. And what I found from that point was actually I was starting to meet a lot of girls then that would just be these friends. When I was sort of 16 to 19 plus onwards. And I was getting a mixture of friendships. Some girls that were my age, some were women. I'd be working with maybe that would talk to me about stuff. And I began to, at the same time, there was one person I did feel, like a friend of mine, I did feel like I got a bit of a crush on at a particular time. And, part of my, my obvious request in me from my worldview was, well, God, what do I do about this? Yes, I'd ask my mates, and they would tell me to do things that I probably didn't have the confidence to do, chat up, whatever. I just didn't have the confidence to do that. It weren't an option for me. Even if I wanted to say stuff, I'd be frozen on the spot, unable to talk or say those kind of words. And I think it wasn't because I was necessarily scared of, ironically, I wasn't necessarily scared of being rejected necessarily from me. It was more the fact of, well, maybe I'm not the best person for them. However much I want to be, what if I'm not supposed to be with this person? Was probably a question of mine, because listening to all the songs that the women were throwing out at the time, there was a lot of emphasis on it being the right person. And you often get these heartbreak songs where they found the wrong person, and the person that said they were going to love them, loved them for a short time but didn't love them forever, and didn't fulfill it, and all this kind of stuff. I didn't want to fit in that box. And so all this time I was learning to value. And I remember one particular point where I really felt like this pull to try and be really sincere, really caring, and really kind, especially towards this person I felt attracted to. To be different than the other guys. The other guys are being very flirtatious. The other guys are being very forward and very dominating, can I say? Kind of very pushy. I want the girl, I'm going to grab the girl kind of thing. And that wasn't me. But what I was actually, I had a capacity to be kind to people. I had been volunteering, I'd done things normally through my church that made me think about other people more than myself sometimes. I still had my own selfish moments, we all do, but there was an idea that actually the world isn't all about me getting what I want. Sometimes it's about helping other people get what they want or need. And so I started trying to be this perfectly kind person to this one person that I felt attracted to, who was my friend. And so I really went to town to try and be sincere, to make it not, it was about trying to be kind to her regardless. Kind of. And that's where I was kind of trying to experiment, I guess, or trying to put my gamble on being kind to maybe win her love, if that was a possibility. And when that failed to get the result I wanted to get, per se, i.e. the romantic end of a movie where the girl goes, oh yeah, woohoo, I loved you all along, wow, moment, that didn't happen for me. In fact, that person went through quite a lot of life changes, which meant she didn't want to even be around me. I was probably the least person she wanted to be around, because of world changes for her and her own values changing. But when I came away from that I was like, whoa, what was this about? And the idea from my friend, this God of the universe, that doesn't exist, that seemed to be helping me out, said something very profound to me, or I felt the idea come to my mind, very profound, asking the question. It was, well, all the effort you went into loving that girl, what would happen if you put that kind of effort into loving your brothers and your sisters, into loving your friends and all the people around you? What would that look like? And so that started the journey, and this stuff was all happening at the same time, and I was beginning to say connect with more women and girls that were sharing their experience, and all it did was grow my value for women. I loved my mum. My mum was a very kind, consistently kind mum, and I was very fortunate to have that situation. In my life story, and that's not always, it's not always the same in everyone's situation. But that. So then you get a group like Busted coming in. Well, there was a few others similar to the Busted, but I think Busted had been quite blatant about it at the time. About this, we're really coming with this kind of macho boy, grab the girl mentality, whether she wanted to be grabbed or not. And because I began to value women in a different way, and see my care and kindness as more important than my chat up line or my want for getting to sex or that kind of stuff, I saw a different path. And actually what I found was, because I was seeing this other viewpoint, this other way, it actually started making me feel cross, because I'd have girls come to talk to me about the way the guys had treated them. Literally, these friends that I cared about that were girls would come to me telling me the things that the guys had been doing to them and whatnot, and it would just make me feel cross, because I would there be thinking, man, like, if these guys could just see how wonderful this girl is, they wouldn't treat them this way. If they could see something more important than the sex, something more valuable than just the beauty on the outside, however they perceive that, maybe they'll be, treat them better, and they wouldn't keep hurting these girls through these thoughtless acts of trying to win a girl for themselves, instead of, I don't know, winning the girl for their girl to know they're amazing, whether you get the girl or not. And I think that's where I really struggled with Busted at the time, and not just then, went on to struggle with lots of things like that. Later on, I had a significant relationship, who was forcibly made to have sex. And it was so utterly disgusting and horrible, for me to see someone that meant so much to me go through such an awful experience, because someone decided to tank what they wanted and grab what they wanted, regardless of the consequences for the other person. And, you know, there is a fun side to love and joking and attraction and that kind of stuff. And there is a good side, but there's a dark side to this stuff. And sometimes people can get hurt by actions and words. And what has this got to do with music? Well, music is the same. You know, people can get hurt by music. Music can force you to feel something you don't feel. It can force you to experience something or have an idea that isn't necessarily your idea. And if you haven't got the capacity to differentiate something that's connecting to your ideas and experiences compared to somebody else, as opposed to experiencing somebody else's experience or somebody else's viewpoint, it can be very easy to tank on that stuff for yourself. So you start having ideas that are not actually your ideas, they're ideas of somebody else, you know. And CDs. When I was 19, I literally took £3,000 worth, 300 CDs approximately, which are all about tenner each probably. So it's getting close to £3,000, if not more. I threw them in the garbage. I loved the music. I absolutely adored music. My brother and my sister, who would often borrow my CDs because I had such a good collection, but like could not believe it. Why would I do that? Why would I throw £3,000 worth of CDs literally in the bin? I even refused to take them to a charity shop because at that moment in time I was so furious with the idea that these people were taking away my free will to choose what I want to think and what I want to feel in my real-time life. And, you know, a few years ago when I was 24, I was living in Haverhill and I was doing youth work and I was doing a lot of singing. And I remember seeing an advert for Firewalk, you know, walking on hot coals. And, you know, I've always been a bit of a daredevil, you know, in a positive way. You know, when I was younger, I used to be jumping off a slide. You know, I'd count to 3 and just jump off. As long as I could count to 3 and jump off, I trusted the way I could land without hurting myself. And if I saw anyone do anything before, and I would copy stuff. And that evolved to daring myself to care for people, ultimately. But anyway, I signed up for this sponsored Firewalk, and I was raring to go. I mean, you know, I was told to get there at like 3 o'clock or something, and the Firewalk was going to be at 7. It seemed ridiculous why I was getting there that early. I was ready to walk in that room and walk across the hot coals. I know people have done it before. I was just going to do it. And, you know, they explained how it works. But in the explanation, they spent about 3 hours talking to us about the power of persuasion. That if you say anything more than 3 times, it becomes true. They did a silly thing where they were gets all to hold each other's arm up like that, and you had to force everyone down. And it'd be really easy. Someone would hold your hand up like that and you'd force it down. It'd be really, really easy, right? But then they'd say to you in the course of time that if people say negative things to you more than 3 times, it makes you weak. And they would explain it several times. And then they'll say, right, come and stand up, and someone would put their arm up like that, and they'd push it down. And then they'd say, right, you're strong, you're strong, you're strong, you're strong. And they'd still be able to push it down. But then they'd say, you're weak, you're weak, you're weak, and you wouldn't be able to do it. They said a thing about smoking. They said if you have cigarettes in your pocket, it makes you weak. You don't have to smoke them. Just have to be in your pocket and it makes you weak. Because cigarettes make you weak. They make you weak. They make you weak. Right, and then they would do the same thing. They'll get someone to put their hand up, and they'll take the cigarettes away, and the person would be able to push their hand down. But when they put the cigarettes back in the pocket, they couldn't do it. Oh boy, I had so much fun with that, winding people up. Because I just stopped smoking at that point. I'd stopped smoking for a few years, and would wind some of the young people up doing this to them. But actually, it was nothing to do with cigarettes per se. It was to do with the power of word suggestion. And word suggestions in songs and music, sorry, pardon me, is massive. Actually, it's a massive potential for you to be almost hypnotised by the music. And when I was 19, I didn't necessarily know all of why I was throwing these CDs away. I knew I just didn't agree with some of the stuff, and it was grating on me. These opposite viewpoints. I also chose to give up swearing. I'd become quite a swearer, and wanted to stop doing that because I felt like it was being unkind to people. To swear at them, so if they want to swear, that's fine. But I felt it was unkind of me to be swearing at people deliberately, and would try to stop myself doing that and this kind of stuff. But when I was 19, I didn't really understand exactly why I was throwing this music away. But I felt like it was about just, I wanted to be positive. I wanted to be more positive. I wanted things to support the views that I had come to myself in my own journey. Now you can say that maybe the power of persuasion of words has made me want to be hopeful and want to be kind because, well, I'm a Christian. The Bible is full of stuff that tells you to be kind and caring. And yeah, that's possibly true. It's not out of the realms of possibility that all my faith and anyone's faith in our world or anyone's worldviews are all a combination of power of suggestion and words. But I found when you understand the power of persuasion of words and understand how to differentiate your real thoughts and your personal ideas that come from you and your thought processes as opposed to being opposed to from outside, actually you begin to find a different type of freedom to be yourself. For those that maybe don't understand what it's like to sometimes be in a culture like a Christian culture or Christian church culture, actually you're encouraged in a church to think about the sermon that's being preached to you. You're not told to take it all word for word. You're told to consider it for yourself. You're told to weigh it up, because the person often speaking, particularly if they're a more genuine person, I think, unless they're really on their own cause, they tend to say, look, this is just what I'm bringing today. Weigh it up for yourself. See what you feel about it. And I find the same process goes on in a church sermon that's got no swearing in it to a song or somebody's words or books or songs being given that might have swearing in it, but might actually, in amongst all the swearing, might contain something that's actually really good, good concept. But these were the things that led me to take some time out of music, to put my CDs away, to stop listening to a bit of music, to help me define who I was and what my personal soul was drawn to. And I can hand on my heart say, when you take all the music away and take all the stuff away, and I'm left with nothing. And I've had this in my life where I've literally been left in a situation with nothing. I can't help but Phil, there's hope. Even in the struggle of maybe feeling lonely, maybe feeling hard done by, maybe feeling wronged, but yet, even in the painful emotion of that, I'm never without hope. And it seems to me that that's just not my experience. And even in many songs of despair and anxiety, there is still a whisper of hope in there. And I don't think this is to do with the power of persuasion. I think this is something that's to do with us as a human. This hope for something better, for something better to come. And sometimes one of the things that used to agitate me quite a lot out of this time would be, because I'd want to bring hope, and because I was writing songs and, in a sense beginning to dream, what if I was one day on this stage singing and all this kind of stuff to thousands and millions of people. It would really grate on me, particularly because at the same time I'd be doing social action as well. I'd be helping people in need. I'd be trying to encourage young people or doing charitable work. And you see lots of people in really tricky situations that need encouragement more than anything else. And you'd get, a Robbie Williams with millions of people at Nedworth, or you'd get, the great, amazing Madonna, with the whole world listening on a Live 8, and in one moment where she stops singing her great songs, she stops singing her songs that everyone has grown to love or like or appreciate, and she has a moment of silence where everyone's prepared to listen to every single word that she says. Like literally they would listen to what she said through her performance being so well done. And in my mind, I'm there thinking, God, say something. Say, you're all wonderful. Say, look, you can have hope. This is a Live 8 concert about, caring about the world. Right, let's care about the world. Let's, end slavery. Let's, love each other. So much there's no such thing as racism or sexism or anything like that. Let's be bold, let's love each other and all that. And all yet at that moment I'm thinking, she's going to say something so wonderful and profound, and she just says, I effing love you. And I don't know, and that's her being her. That's the thing, that's her being her. There's nothing wrong with her being her. That's not the wrong thing there. What I said, our sincerity is always there, and Madonna is sincere. She likes the use of that provocative language. But I would prefer her to say, let's stop effing slavery. Let's stop effing being unkind to each other, and say I love you all very much. But I also would have preferred her to say, if she wanted to use her language. But that's just me. That's me being different from Madonna, And then I sort of think, well, what would I say? Robbie Williams has all of his fans at Nebworth, and he sends them off with a swearing. When he had an opportunity, I think, to give hope, to say, thank you for coming out. Thanks so much. I don't know. What would I say in a speech? If you had the whole world listening for one moment, what words would you say? Me, I think I'd probably say, there's always hope. Why? Because above all the music, I care. And yes, I struggle with my own selfishness. Yes, I can be cruel. I've got the same willpower as anybody else. When somebody hurts me, or I feel upset, or I don't feel so good as my own emotions, I have a choice, to make on how I treat people and how I respond. I got cross with my friend the other day to try and tell me to telling me off for logging out when I was logging out of work, because if I'd waited 5 minutes longer, I would have got paid more money. And I was like, what are you telling me? I don't care about none of that. I work to work. I don't care. I trust what I get at the end of the day will be enough to get what I need to do. If I work that 5 minutes later, I'll sign out 5 minutes later. I don't need somebody else. I don't mind somebody else sharing me their opinion, but if they start telling me what to do, that's not my nature. I can get a bit grumpy about that. But even in that moment, I still got to choose how I deal with people, and I can be as prone to being sharp and less thoughtful as anybody else. But all of this is, we come sincerely. But part of music, I think we need to do is really value and understand the power that can be behind music. The power of persuasion. It's a work for good. You can persuade a whole world to rally behind Africa and in a Live 8 concert, but at the same time you can make a whole load of young people dive into gang culture or dive into a bed with somebody that's not right for them too early and cause a lot of pain. And yet at the same time, actually somebody's gone through some of that stuff can sometimes identify with your song that you've shared of that experience. So this is a mixed message by nature, what I'm saying here. And what is the key? I think the key is maybe to listen. Like tuning the guitar, you have to listen to those nuances. Sometimes when you're in a band, you're trying to tune your guitar when you've got a bass player over there trying to tune up. You've got a drum player getting his drums ready. You might have people chatting around and you're trying to listen to your guitar, not to everyone else's. And I think it's something to do with that. When you're listening to music and enjoying music or learning music or practicing music or even performing somebody else's song, that you're aware it's you singing, it's you playing, it's your sincerity playing. If you get up there and try and, the amount of people going, these, Pop Idol or X Factor, and Simon Cowell go, oh, you sound like you're doing karaoke. Why? Because that person, I think, unaware, has just basically they are trying to be somebody else. In learning somebody's song, they've tried to be somebody else instead of being themselves singing somebody else's song. And I think it's sometimes the unfortunate of that sort of situation. We can sound like we're doing karaoke or we're not being genuine when we feel we're being genuine. But it's a subtle thing sometimes, and you have to really learn to hear, learn to think for yourself. When you go to a church and you hear a sermon, you've got to think for yourself. You've got to evaluate yourself, because not everything spoken is going to be necessarily right for your journey. And not necessarily right in the journey of our communities. But there's also a lot of gold that is good for communities. And the same way with songs and somebody else's worldviews. There's going to be things that are good for us, and there's going to be some things that are not right for us. And, music is a very good example of the power of persuasion, and music is a very good example of where we could potentially speak a lot more hope than what we do. And if I ever get a moment when I was listening, I really hope I say something really sensible and really powerful, you know, a Martin Luther King type speech. You know, I think the Queen sometimes really delivers powerful speeches. Sometimes just picks the right words. Whether people want to hit her or believe her is another thing. But you know, the words themselves, I think, are good. And I love it when somebody finds those moments and they say something very profound and changing for the world around them. A voice of hope, I believe, is what songs are meant to be about. But we have to be careful not to be dragged down into somebody else's experience that might not necessarily be our own. You know, I remember being 17, 18, and if I listened to certain music it would make me feel one way, and another music would make me feel another way, and I was swayed by the music. My emotions were being literally swayed by the music. Whereas if I shut all that off, when I shut that all off, suddenly I could think for myself. I knew that my happy day, I was actually having a happy day. And if I had a sad day, I was actually having a sad day because I felt that. If I felt like I was actually interested in a person romantically, I would know that that was a real interest and not me just being desperate or being pushed to think I've got to think that, you know. And actually that helped me lots because it meant I could just be friends with lots of people and not feel the pressure to necessarily make it all about romance as much as I want to meet the right person and all that. And also when those things don't work out, when the romance don't work out, or things don't work out the way you hope they would, you still can have hope because you are dealing with your own hope. And then these songs that have hope or have understanding of what you've been through can add to your hope and give you the confidence to move on. This is a longer talk, I'm sorry, but you know, even the last few days I've had to have a little break from some music, I think, because if music it doesn't make you feel hopeful, if music doesn't help you move forward, it's good to put it down for a minute, to re-pick up the right time. And sometimes, right now I'm processing personal emotions that need to be processed, and you can't always skip past that too quickly. Hope is a progression, you know. It's a dream and a progress. You know, you dream into a day of being free from the thing you were struggling with, but at the same time you've got to process those emotions. Why? Well, because depression, anxieties, all these things are very real subjects that affect us, and a lot of that stuff comes down to us not being sincere with ourselves, processing the real person we are, and being accepting of who we are in the day. You know, I can be hopeful without being hopeful every day. I can be depressed today, but still be hopeful. Yeah, it is. I really hope this is helpful for people, and if anything, it would be helpful for myself. This is not for the many, it's for a few. For one, even if that's one that's me. And I just want to be kind, I want to be caring. I want to tell you about how the music impacts my life, and even the times I have to put music down, or ensure that when I'm listening to music, or listening to somebody else's ideas or feelings or experiences, that I'm not making them my own. You know, they're like the other instruments while I'm tuning the guitar. I've got to keep the ear for my guitar. Otherwise, I might be out of tune. If I try and tune my guitar to the bass guitarist, it's going to be a problem. My strings won't go there. So it's important to be. You listen to the other ones when you're playing your music, but there's a time when you've got to focus on who you are, and then you can join in with the band and sound awesome. And it's nothing worse than being part of the band and being slightly off. You know, when you hear someone out of tune. I've been out of tune. I heard myself out of tune. I hate it. When your guitar goes out and you're like, and you would love to just be able to stop everything and retune your guitar and continue the set. But once you've started, you can't really stop. And you have to see through the set and try and avoid that string while playing, or find another way to keep the music going without your bad tune affecting the set. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and yeah, take care.
You